Good evening and welcome. It is Monday, July the 11th, 2022. It is 6:30 p.m. and I'm calling to order the Planning Commission meeting for the City of Burnsville. Tonight's Planning Commission meeting is being held in person and virtually by Zoom. As chair, I'll be leading the Planning Commission meeting, and the public is welcome to participate when invited throughout the meeting. Members of the public may attend the meeting in person or join us via Zoom. If attendees experience audio problems going through Zoom, they may leave the meeting and rejoin. That usually solves the problem. Additional instructions on how to participate are online at www.burnsvillemn.gov. It's on the public meeting calendar. As usual, tonight's meeting is available for viewing on BCTV and on the city's website. If you're unable to participate this evening and would like to submit public testimony, we want to hear from you. I encourage you to email your comments to city staff or mail your comments directly to City Hall. If you are going to participate in tonight's open public meeting tonight, you can do so by joining us on zoom.us/join and typing in meeting ID 981-7642-4014. Once you are logged into the meeting, please use the chat feature to tell the moderator which item you'd like to speak to. If you decide to call into the meeting, you can do so by calling this phone number, 651-372-8299. Again, the meeting ID is the same, 981-7642-4014. And for each public hearing, I will open up that time when callers may speak to that item and give more instructions at that time. Your call will be muted until then, but please, there's going to be a slight delay in technology, so if you're calling us by the phone, please turn down your computer or mute your television. With that, all this information and more is included on the website. Again, that's burnsvillemn.gov in the public meetings calendar. With that, I'm going to turn over to the agenda. It looks like tonight's agenda is going to include public hearing and election tonight. It's a big night. So with that, I would like to ask commissioners any additions to the agenda that you know of or would like to add. Seeing none, I'm going to turn over to staff. Staff, any objection?
None from staff.
Nothing from staff. With that, I will look for a motion to approve the agenda for tonight. Commissioner Wad.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wad. Do I have a second? Commissioner Braddock.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Braddock. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And it is passed. We had our last meeting was on June the 13th, and the minutes of that meeting were in your packets, and I'm hoping everybody read through it. Commissioners, any changes to the meeting minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to turn to staff. Staff, any changes?
None from staff.
None from staff. With that, I would look for a motion to approve the minutes from the June 13th meeting. Commissioner Wallace.
Motion moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Wallace. A second. Commissioner Anderson.
I second.
Second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the minutes are now public history. With that, we'll move to our very third item on the agenda. That's a public hearing. It's an application of the City of Burnsville for an amendment to City Code Title 10, Zoning, Chapter 7, General Provisions, Chapter 12, R1, One Family Residential District, and Chapter 13, 1 R1A, which is One Family Rental Residential, to make minor amendments related to the topics including, but not limited to, zoning requirements for accessory structures, residential foundations, and roofs. Presenting tonight is the city's intern, Katie Danielzuk. Ms. Danielzuk, the floor is yours. I'm getting there.
You got it. Okay, so yeah, the item we're here for is to make minor amendments going forward with the whole zoning code review that was started before my time in 2021, but these are just little housekeeping amendments that will relate to accessory structures, residential foundations, and roofs. So just some background. The goal of this is just to simplify language and redesign of chapter layout so it's more accessible. Staff is making recommendations of modifications to the current zoning code, which is what is in this presentation. And then Planning Commission and City Council have already expressed support for these changes. And the purpose of this hearing is to go over the several changes that we're looking to make. Have to have a planning commission with a public hearing for this, and just the following, when we get to it, draft ordinance will illustrate what we're looking to strike through and remove. So for summaries, the first one we're looking to edit is to get rid of the zoning permit requirement for any accessory buildings between 50 and 200 square feet. Just looking at other cities, it's not common to require that. And so removing it will take some load off of the planners. Moving forward to chapter 12, for roofs, we're gonna get rid of the requirement that they should have pitched roofs, just because modern styles and aesthetics of homes, it's really popular to have flat roofs, so why not? For basements, we're also getting rid of the provision that it's required that all homes have them, except for earth sheltered homes. And going along with this is the proposition to remove the section of city code that requires the continuous perimeter and permanent foundation. And then the last one is similar, just getting rid of the requirement to have the different standards for metal roofs, and we're just gonna allow them. And considerations going through with this, engineering doesn't have any considerations. Fire, building, and police do have concerns with eliminating the zoning permit for the city code. And this is due to the possibility that enforcement action is received. They'll have to deal with that, especially if the accessory structure is put in a non-code compliant location, and then that's just what that department was concerned with. And then planning considerations, we're making these recommendations for a reason, and that's to simplify the code. And going forward, we have the modifications as they will appear in the new code with the strike through. As you can see here, subsection J is about the accessory structure. We're just gonna get rid of it. Are we gonna leave any reserved, Regina?
We wouldn't have to indicate that at this time for reservation. We can work out those details with the city clerk.
Okay, and then yeah, just it's all a strike through, so it's a pretty simple change for what we're proposing to do. And then staff just recommends that the planning commission recommends to city council that these are all going to be approved. Does anyone have any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Wad?
I have a question. Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Very
That's
appreciative.
probably a question for staff or Ms. Dean. And it has to do with accessory buildings. One time did we talk about regulating the height of the sidewall of an accessory building? Or is that coming down the road in the future?
Yeah, so the proposed changes that are in front of you today, we felt were pretty minor in nature and were discussed and really relate to some recent inquiries that we've had and will help streamline the process for a lot of our residents. We do propose to change the sidewalls of accessory structures and in fact even look at the limitations that we have right now. It's pretty cumbersome as far as how many accessory structures you can have on site, what qualifies as an accessory structure or building. For example, you can have a shed and a gazebo, but you can't have two sheds, or you can have a pool and a shed, but you can't have a pool, a shed, and a gazebo. So it's pretty, I don't know, cumbersome, and we do want to clean some of that up too as part of the larger zoning code update. That is forthcoming. Deb's been doing a great job trying to weave through all of the verbiage. As you may remember, we wanted to kind of pull it apart and make things a lot easier, but doing that has taken quite some time. So it'll be before you. We're hoping soon, and so we can start getting a lot of those other changes on the books. But we felt these changes were pretty minor yet pretty impactful to some of our residents.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wallace?
One additional question in regards to requiring basements. Have we given any thought to the exception of like a flood zone or anything of that nature?
That's a really great question. We don't have that exception spelled out specifically in our, so would affect the general provisions. There are specific floodplain regulations and shoreline regulations that would supersede some of this, the general provisions. So that's something that would be looked at separately. Plus, there are building code requirements that would also come into play in those situations as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, commissioners? No. It did sound like the building code enforcement office had some objections, but didn't present themselves. Did they list what those objections would be?
So I can speak to that. So specifically, so police and building didn't have an issue with the proposed changes, but code enforcement does have some concerns with the zoning permit, and the feeling is if we don't have a zoning permit, how can we ensure that people are placing the structures in a correct location? And if they don't, and there's a complaint, then it just means more staff time to go out, work with the property owner to relocate the shed, get it in the right spot. Or if it can't be easily relocated and someone wants to apply for a variance because they're too close to a setback, then they'd have to go through that process. So they felt that having the zoning permit in place would help kind of mitigate some of those issues that could come forward. My guess is that a lot of people put up these sheds anyway. They're weekend warriors and they go up and they're around. A lot of cities don't require permits, and I liken this something to like a fence or a tree where a homeowner they don't need a permit for it as long as it's under 7 feet, and they place it in the property, and sometimes it is the wrong location. It happens, but most often we still get those phone calls. People want to do the right thing and call before and find out the proper location. So we'll still work with people. We'll still provide that customer service. We just won't charge a permit fee and then have to review it and then have to go out and inspect, something that doesn't normally trigger a building permit.
Makes sense. Thank you. Commissioner Anderson.
The change is more for the size, not necessarily where it's supposed to be. So the rule will still be there. It can't be within, certain distance from the, okay, just wanted to.
That's correct. That's correct. It's strictly striking the permit requirement. It still has to meet setbacks. At this time, they would still be limited to the one detached structure, shed, or we'll go through that later. And then the height requirement would still be the same, again, at this time. So, but we do foresee some additional changes that we would be proposing and bringing before you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Well, this is a public hearing, so I am going to open up that public hearing at 6:43. If you're joining us from Zoom, you can let the moderator know you have a question for city staff concerning this recommendation.
There is no one on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Well, then we're going to wait 30 seconds. No, excuse me. We'll close the public hearing again at 6:43 and 39 seconds. And I will turn it back to the commissioners for discussion. Commissioner Watt.
I have nothing to discuss, and I certainly agree with the recommendations, and so I'd be happy to make a motion unless somebody else has something they want to say. Okay, so I will.
Floor is yours.
I move that we recommend to the City Council approval of the proposed ordinance amendment as drafted.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Commissioner Braddock?
I second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Braddock. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That sounded unanimous to me. It means it ends up on the consent agenda for City Council. With that, we will move on to the next item on our agenda. Thank you, Ms. Daniel. Thank you, Katie. That'll take me a while. We'll get there. We'll get there. Next one, oh, this is very relevant. Next one is election of a chair and vice chair. And I believe that is going to be a pretty simple procedure where I am going to just call for nominations. Is there any nominations for the chair? Commissioner Anderson?
I would like to nominate Chris John for the chair.
Ooh, re-election, okay. Any other nominations for the chair position? Okay, well, hearing none. Mr. Chris John has been nominated as the chair. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Braddock.
I second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Braddock.
Chris John.
Motion by Commissioner Anderson, second by Commissioner Braddock. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that's unanimous. And secondly, we have a vice chair position open. So we have any nominations for the vice chair position? Commissioner Wad?
I'd like to nominate Robert Timmerman in absentia.
It's because he's not here, huh? I'll teach him. Okay, got a nomination on the floor by Commissioner Wad. Commissioner Wallace?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Wallace. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that, again, is unanimous. Now, Commissioner John and Commissioner Timmerman will remain your chair and vice chair for another year. And thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like that's saying that you like what I'm doing. I appreciate that. Thank you. With that, it ends up being number 5 on the agenda, which is updates. Any updates, commissioners? Any updates, staff?
So the July 25th meeting, we anticipate Panda Express application. That's one of the Burnsville Center lot and blocks that was recently created, will be before you for recommendation. And then the BSLI landfill application for a conditional use permit and a planned unit development will be before you. For the people watching at home and on the World Wide Web, we do have a landfill webpage on our city website for more information on the process and the different entities involved. So I encourage people to look for that and follow along. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. With that, those are all the updates. Commissioner Wallace, do you have a motion to make here?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn,
Why,
please.
thank you, Commissioner Wallace. Anyone have a second? Commissioner Anderson?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. We got a motion to adjourn by Commissioner Wallace, second by Commissioner Anderson. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Another unanimous vote. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.